August 7, 1942. Bloody Ridge, Guadalcanal. Sergeant Major Takeshi Yamamoto crouched in his muddy foxhole, carefully dividing his final rice ball into 4 equal portions to last another day. The veteran of the China campaigns laughed bitterly as he read captured American documents describing enemy rations, the intelligence reports seeming too absurd to be genuine. "Look at this propaganda," Yamamoto said to his squad leader, Corporal Hiroshi Nakamura, pointing to a U.S. Army field manual that listed chocolate bars, chewing gum, and cigarettes as standard combat rations. "The soft Americans require candy and luxuries, even during warfare. They fight like children who demand sweets from their mothers. Such weakness will be their downfall." Around him, 3,000 soldiers of the Kawaguchi detachment prepared for another banzai charge with empty stomachs and iron discipline, sustained by nothing more than rice, pickled vegetables, and unwavering devotion to the emperor. What none of these battle-hardened veterans could have imagined was that within hours they would be examining American K-rations containing more luxury items than Japanese officers received during peacetime, evidence of industrial abundance that would shatter every assumption about enemy weakness. The mathematical reality of American abundance was already being calculated in production statistics that defied Japanese comprehension. The Hershey Company alone was producing 20 million chocolate bars monthly for military consumption by 1942, enough to provide every American soldier with candy weekly while maintaining unlimited civilian production. What Yamamoto couldn't know, what none of the Japanese officers briefing their men on American softness understood, was that those candy bars represented systematic abundance so overwhelming that it would force complete reassessment of everything they believed about their enemy's industrial capacity and fighting capability. Before we continue with this incredible story of how something as simple as a chocolate bar became a weapon of psychological warfare, I want to invite you to join our community of history enthusiasts. Please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support helps us bring these amazing, untold stories to light. If you're enjoying this deep dive into WWII's most surprising psychological battles, give this video a thumbs up and share it with anyone who loves military history. Trust me, this story gets even more incredible. Now, let's get back to how American candy changed the course of Pacific warfare. Japanese contempt for American materialism wasn't merely military doctrine. It was rooted in centuries of warrior philosophy that viewed luxury and comfort as corrupting influences that weakened fighting spirit. The Tootsie samurai tradition emphasized hardship as character building, teaching soldiers that superior will could triumph over material advantage through spiritual discipline and acceptance of suffering. Lieutenant Colonel Kiyono Ichiki, commanding the detachment preparing to assault Henderson Field, exemplified this philosophy in his pre-battle address to assembled officers. The American soldier requires mechanical comfort and material luxuries to maintain fighting ability. Their dependence on elaborate supply systems reveals fundamental weakness that disciplined warriors will exploit. We achieve victory through spiritual strength that material abundance cannot provide. The intelligence briefings provided to Japanese forces consistently reinforced these beliefs through selective reporting that emphasized American industrial capacity while dismissing its military applications. Japanese analysts viewed American production of consumer goods during wartime as evidence of a society too comfortable to make necessary sacrifices for total war. Major Yukio Kokusho, intelligence officer for the 17th Army, had analyzed captured American supply manifests with professional skepticism. Enemy forces require elaborate logistical support, including luxury items that proper soldiers would consider unnecessary distractions. Their combat effectiveness depends on maintaining civilian comfort levels that reveal lack of warrior discipline essential for sustained warfare. The cultural preparation for encountering American decadence was systematic and thorough. Japanese soldiers were taught that American abundance reflected moral weakness rather than industrial strength, that luxury corrupted fighting spirit, and that accepting enemy comforts would compromise their spiritual purity and commitment to victory. Captain Tadamichi Kuribayashi, who would later command Iwo Jima's defenses, had lectured his troops on American materialism just weeks before Guadalcanal. The enemy offers chocolate and cigarettes because they cannot comprehend warrior dedication to higher purposes. Their society produces luxury goods for soldiers who lack spiritual strength to fight without material comfort. Reject their offerings. Accept only what international law requires. The ration system supporting Japanese military operations reflected philosophical commitment to austerity that was viewed as strength-building rather than deprivation. The standard Japanese field ration consisted of 660 grams of rice, 150 grams of canned meat or fish, pickled vegetables, and tea, minimal nutrition designed to maintain combat effectiveness while building character through hardship. The contrast with American rations seemed to validate Japanese beliefs about fundamental differences in national character. Intelligence reports indicated that American soldiers received daily rations totaling 4,200 calories compared to Japanese allocations of 2,100 calories, suggesting a military force dependent on excessive nutrition that proper warriors would consider wasteful. Warrant Officer Jiro Horikoshi, quartermaster for the Kawaguchi detachment, had calculated the resource implications of American ration requirements. Enemy forces consumed twice the nutrition necessary for combat effectiveness, while maintaining elaborate supply chains that deliver luxury items to forward positions. This wastefulness indicates industrial capacity diverted from weapon production to soldier comfort, evidence of misplaced priorities that will ensure their defeat. The individual examples of Japanese endurance had become legendary throughout the Imperial Army. Soldiers who fought effectively for weeks on minimal rations while maintaining combat readiness were celebrated as proof of spiritual superiority over materially dependent enemies. Sergeant Yamamoto himself had survived the Bataan campaign, consuming 400 calories daily for 6 weeks while maintaining machine gun position that achieved 12 confirmed kills. Such dedication seemed impossible for comfort-dependent American soldiers who required elaborate supply systems to maintain morale and fighting effectiveness. The ideological framework supporting these beliefs went beyond military doctrine to encompass fundamental assumptions about racial and cultural superiority. Japanese propaganda taught soldiers that American society, corrupted by material abundance and individualistic values, was inherently incapable of the unity and sacrifice necessary for victory against spiritually superior opponents. The weapons and equipment that Japanese soldiers carried into battle reflected this philosophy of achieving maximum effectiveness through minimal resources. The Arisaka rifle, Type 99 light machine gun, and infantry equipment were designed for reliability and functionality rather than soldier comfort, embodying the principle that warriors required only essential tools for victory. The medical supplies available to Japanese infantry emphasized treatment of battle wounds rather than comfort medications or preventive care that American forces apparently required. Japanese soldiers were taught to endure pain and illness through spiritual discipline rather than dependence on pharmaceutical remedies that revealed weakness. The transportation of Japanese forces to combat zones was accomplished using minimal shipping space and basic accommodation that built character while conserving resources for essential military equipment. The contrast with American logistics, which apparently included refrigerated ships for transporting ice cream and soft drinks, seemed to confirm fundamental differences in military priorities. The communication systems linking Japanese units emphasized essential tactical information rather than personal correspondence or entertainment that American forces apparently required for morale maintenance. Japanese soldiers were taught that spiritual connection to the emperor and homeland provided all psychological support necessary for sustained combat. The intelligence available to Japanese commanders seemed to confirm that American forces were psychologically dependent on material comforts that proper armies would consider unnecessary luxuries. Reports of American field kitchens, recreational facilities, and postal systems suggested a military force that required civilian amenities to maintain fighting effectiveness. As Sergeant Yamamoto prepared his final equipment check before the assault on Henderson Field, he embodied Japanese confidence in spiritual superiority over material advantage. His personal kit contained rice, ammunition, and medical supplies, everything a warrior needed for victory without unnecessary luxuries that would compromise fighting spirit. The stage was set for the most profound psychological shock in modern military history, not through superior firepower or tactical innovation, but through the simple discovery that American soldiers carried candy bars in their combat rations, evidence of abundance so overwhelming that it would challenge fundamental assumptions about the relationship between luxury and military effectiveness. Japanese confidence in spiritual superiority over material dependence wasn't theoretical philosophy. It was earned through 40 years of military campaigns where disciplined soldiers had consistently triumphed over better-equipped enemies through superior will and systematic cultivation of warrior virtues that American society, corrupted by comfort and abundance, could never understand or replicate. The statistical reality supported Japanese beliefs with mathematical precision that seemed to validate austerity as military advantage. Since the Meiji Restoration, Japanese forces had conquered territories containing 400 million people while fighting enemies, possessing overwhelming material advantages, victories achieved through soldiers who required minimal supplies while maintaining maximum combat effectiveness through spiritual discipline that luxury could only weaken. The secret lay in systematic training that transformed hardship into strength, teaching warriors to extract maximum performance from minimal resources while maintaining unwavering commitment to victory, regardless of personal comfort or survival. The Imperial Army had perfected methods for creating soldiers who fought effectively on rations that would incapacitate troops dependent on abundant nutrition and mechanical conveniences. General Hideki Tojo, analyzing Japanese military philosophy and strategic assessments, had codified the principles that made material deprivation a source of strength rather than weakness. The Japanese soldier achieves superiority through spiritual discipline that eliminates dependence on luxury and comfort. Hardship purifies warrior spirit, while abundance corrupts fighting ability. American forces, raised in material comfort, will collapse when deprived of excessive support systems that proper armies consider unnecessary. The dietary restrictions that had shaped Japanese military culture since the Russo-Japanese War were viewed as advantages that provided tactical flexibility impossible for supply-dependent forces. Japanese soldiers could maintain combat effectiveness on 600 calories daily, while American troops apparently required 4,200 calories, a ratio that provided strategic mobility and reduced logistical vulnerability. Field Marshal Iwane Matsui, commanding Japanese forces during the conquest of Shanghai, had documented the tactical advantages of Japanese frugality in operational reports. Our forces advance 40 kilometers daily on rations that would paralyze Western armies. Japanese soldiers function effectively with supply lines that American units would consider starvation conditions. This discipline provides operational advantages that material-dependent enemies cannot match. The training regimen that prepared Japanese soldiers for combat emphasized systematic hardship as character development essential for warrior effectiveness. Physical conditioning included extended marches without food, combat exercises in extreme weather, and survival training that taught soldiers to function effectively regardless of comfort or supply availability. Captain Saburo Ota, instructor at the Imperial Army Infantry School, had developed training protocols that built spiritual strength through controlled deprivation. The warrior achieves greatness through systematic exposure to hardship that eliminates weakness and builds character. American soldiers, trained in comfort and provided luxuries, lack spiritual preparation necessary for sustained combat under adverse conditions. The cultural foundation supporting military austerity extended throughout Japanese society, organized around principles of sacrifice for higher purposes that American individualism could never achieve. Civilian rationing, begun in 1937, was presented as moral training that strengthened the national spirit while preparing citizens for wartime sacrifice that material-dependent societies would find impossible. The equipment issued to Japanese infantry reflected philosophical commitment to achieving maximum effectiveness through minimal resources. The Type 38 rifle, weighing 8.5 pounds, required no special maintenance while providing accuracy that exceeded heavier Western weapons. Infantry gear emphasized functionality over comfort, eliminating unnecessary items that would burden warriors or encourage dependence on luxury. Lieutenant Hiroshi Onoda, who would later demonstrate ultimate warrior dedication by continuing combat operations for 29 years after the war's end, exemplified Japanese military philosophy during his Chia's training. The true soldier requires only essential equipment and spiritual strength to achieve victory. Material comfort weakens fighting spirit, while hardship builds character necessary for sustained warfare. American dependence on luxury reveals fundamental weakness that disciplined warriors will exploit. The medical doctrine supporting Japanese forces emphasized treatment of battle wounds while discouraging dependence on comfort medications or preventive care that Western armies apparently considered necessary. Japanese soldiers were taught to endure pain and illness through spiritual discipline rather than pharmaceutical remedies that indicated weakness and compromised warrior effectiveness. The logistics system supporting Japanese military operations achieved efficiency through systematic elimination of non-essential supplies that burdened Western forces with unnecessary complexity. Japanese quartermasters provided essential nutrition, ammunition, and medical supplies while avoiding luxury items that would corrupt warrior spirit and complicate supply chains. Major General Seishiro Itagaki, analyzing comparative logistics during the Nomonhan incident, had documented Japanese advantages over material-dependent opponents. Our supply requirements achieve combat effectiveness with 60% fewer resources than Soviet forces require for equivalent operations. This efficiency provides strategic advantages through reduced vulnerability to enemy interdiction and simplified logistics that maintain operational flexibility. The combat record validated Japanese beliefs about spiritual superiority over material advantage through consistent victories against better-equipped enemies across multiple theaters. In China, Japanese forces had defeated nationalist armies possessing modern weapons and abundant supplies through tactical discipline that exploited enemy dependence on elaborate support systems. The individual examples of Japanese endurance had become legendary throughout the Imperial Army, demonstrating spiritual strength that material-dependent soldiers could never achieve. Warriors who fought effectively for months without adequate food or medical care while maintaining combat performance were celebrated as proof of racial and cultural superiority. Sergeant Major Masanobu Tsuji, veteran of campaigns from Manchuria to Southeast Asia, documented examples that became inspirational propaganda. Private Yamada fought for 23 days with no food except grass and tree bark, yet maintained his position and achieved 6 confirmed kills against Chinese forces equipped with abundant supplies and modern weapons. Such spiritual strength is impossible for luxury-dependent Western soldiers. The technological achievements supporting Japanese military success seemed to confirm superiority of disciplined engineering over resource-intensive approaches favored by Western nations. Japanese weapons like the Zero fighter achieved superior performance through weight reduction and efficient design rather than powerful engines and heavy armament that characterized American aircraft. Engineer Colonel Jiro Horikoshi, designer of the Zero fighter, had explained Japanese technological philosophy to military officials. We achieve superior performance through efficient design that eliminates unnecessary weight and complexity. American aircraft require powerful engines and heavy construction to compensate for wasteful design philosophy. Our approach produces superior results through disciplined engineering that maximizes effectiveness while minimizing resource requirements. The industrial organization supporting Japanese military production operated on principles that eliminated waste inherent in Western capitalist systems focused on profit rather than efficiency. Japanese factories achieved maximum output through coordinated planning that directed all resources toward essential military requirements without producing luxury goods that diverted capacity from victory. The economic data available to Japanese leadership supported beliefs about American material dependence, creating strategic vulnerability. Intelligence reports indicated that American war production included significant allocation to consumer goods rather than essential military equipment, suggesting misplaced priorities that disciplined opponents could exploit. Dr. Seihin Ikeda, analyzing American economic statistics for the Cabinet Planning Board, had identified fundamental weaknesses in enemy resource allocation. American industry continues producing automobiles, refrigerators, and luxury goods while we convert every facility to essential war production. Their economy serves individual comfort rather than collective victory. This fundamental misallocation of resources will manifest as strategic weakness under sustained warfare pressure. The spiritual preparation that accompanied Japanese military training created psychological advantages that material-dependent forces could never achieve. Soldiers taught to find meaning through sacrifice and service to higher purposes possessed morale and dedication. That luxury-dependent armies, motivated by individual comfort and survival, could not sustain under adverse conditions. The Bushido code that governed Japanese military behavior emphasized honor, duty, and spiritual strength as values superior to physical comfort or material advantage. Warriors who internalized these principles achieved combat effectiveness that transcended resource limitations while maintaining fighting spirit regardless of tactical setbacks or supply shortages. By August 1942, as Japanese forces prepared for decisive operations at Guadalcanal, they carried with them 18 months of evidence that spiritual discipline and material austerity had proven superior to Western dependence on luxury and abundance. The Imperial Army had conquered territories from Manchuria to the Solomon Islands, while fighting enemies who possessed greater resources but lacked warrior spirit necessary for sustained victory. What Japanese commanders couldn't anticipate was that American abundance would prove so overwhelming that it would challenge fundamental assumptions about the relationship between material comfort and military effectiveness, beginning a psychological transformation that would force complete reassessment of everything they believed about their enemy's strength and their own supposed advantages. August 21st, 1942, Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. Corporal Hiroshi Nakamura crawled through the pre-dawn darkness toward the abandoned American positions, his stomach cramping from hunger after 3 days of half rations. The Kawaguchi detachment's assault had failed to dislodge the Marines, leaving scattered equipment and supplies across the battlefield that Japanese forces desperately needed to examine. What Nakamura discovered in the first abandoned foxhole defied everything he had been taught about American military weakness. Scattered across the muddy ground lay the contents of a USK ration: canned meat, crackers, coffee, cigarettes, and impossibly, a Hershey's chocolate bar wrapped in brown paper, untouched, despite the fierce fighting that had raged for hours. "Masaka," he whispered, picking up the chocolate bar with trembling hands. "They bring candy to war." The psychological shock was immediate and devastating. Nakamura had been fighting for 6 weeks on rice balls and pickled vegetables, losing 12 pounds while maintaining his machine gun position. The idea that enemy soldiers carried luxury food items into combat challenged fundamental assumptions about American fighting spirit and resource allocation. But this was merely the opening discovery in a systematic revelation that would challenge Japanese beliefs about the relationship between abundance and military effectiveness. The abandoned American position contained evidence of logistical capabilities that Japanese quartermaster doctrine deemed impossible for sustained combat operations. Intelligence Sergeant Kenji Yamada, fluent in English and responsible for examining captured materials, catalogued the contents with growing amazement. Each K ration contained not just essential nutrition, but luxury items that Japanese officers couldn't obtain even in peacetime: chocolate, chewing gum, cigarettes, and canned fruit. Evidence of abundance that seemed to violate natural laws of wartime resource allocation. "The Americans fight with dessert," Yamada reported to his commanding officer, Major Yukio Kokusho. "Their rations include luxury items that our soldiers have never tasted. Either this represents elaborate propaganda, or enemy abundance exceeds our intelligence estimates by impossible margins." The caloric analysis revealed mathematical realities that challenged Japanese understanding of military nutrition. Each K ration provided 3,000 calories of high-quality protein, carbohydrates, and fats, more nutrition than Japanese soldiers received in 3 days of field rations, packaged for individual consumption by single American soldiers. The chocolate alone represented luxury that Japanese military culture considered incompatible with warrior discipline. The Hershey bar contained 600 calories of pure energy in concentrated form, yet it was provided as supplemental nutrition rather than essential sustenance, evidence of resource availability that made such abundance possible even for combat troops. Lieutenant Tadamichi Kuribayashi, analyzing the captured supplies, struggled to comprehend the industrial implications. "These rations suggest production capacity that can provide luxury foods to individual soldiers while maintaining combat effectiveness. The abundance indicates manufacturing capability that exceeds our estimates of American industrial potential." But the most psychologically devastating discovery was the systematic nature of American abundance. This wasn't special equipment for elite units. Every abandoned position contained identical rations, suggesting that luxury items were standard issue for all American combat forces rather than exceptional provisions for special operations. The cigarettes included in each ration challenged another fundamental assumption about American military culture. Japanese soldiers received tobacco as rare luxury allocated through complex distribution systems, yet American forces apparently carried cigarettes as standard equipment, 5 packs per ration, more tobacco than Japanese soldiers saw in monthly allocations. Private First Class Yoshio Kodama, assigned to distribute captured rations among his squad, observed the psychological impact on Japanese soldiers. "The men stare at American chocolate like religious artifacts. They cannot comprehend how enemy soldiers receive luxury foods while maintaining combat effectiveness. The abundance challenges everything we were taught about warrior discipline and material dependence. The chewing gum represented perhaps the most incomprehensible luxury. Japanese military culture viewed non-essential consumption as spiritual weakness, yet American soldiers apparently carried flavored gum as standard equipment, evidence of abundance so complete that psychological comfort was considered essential for combat effectiveness. The canned fruit provided additional shock to Japanese assumptions about wartime nutrition. Peaches, pears, and fruit cocktail packed in syrup represented luxury foods unavailable to Japanese civilians since 1937, yet American soldiers discarded partially consumed cans without concern for waste, behavior that suggested unlimited supply availability. Dr. Jiro Sasaki, medical officer for the Kawaguchi detachment, examined American rations from nutritional perspectives that revealed systematic superiority over Japanese field nutrition. Enemy rations provide complete nutritional requirements, including vitamins and minerals, absent from our rice-based diet. The medical implications suggest systematic attention to soldier health that exceeds military medical doctrine. The packaging technology itself demonstrated industrial capabilities that Japanese quartermasters couldn't achieve. Waterproof containers, hermetic sealing, and preservation methods that maintained food quality under tropical conditions for extended periods. Engineering applications that revealed manufacturing sophistication applied to individual soldier requirements. The psychological warfare value of this abundance became apparent through conversations monitored by Japanese intelligence officers. Soldiers who had maintained discipline and fighting spirit through systematic deprivation began questioning fundamental assumptions about American weakness and Japanese superiority. Corporal Nakamura, sharing the captured chocolate with his squad, articulated the cognitive dissonance that was spreading throughout Japanese ranks. We were taught that Americans depend on luxury because they lack warrior spirit, but soldiers who carry candy into battle and fight effectively challenge everything we believed about the relationship between comfort and courage. The mail censorship revealed systematic impact on Japanese morale as soldiers wrote letters home describing American abundance that their families couldn't comprehend. Many stopped requesting food packages after realizing their families possessed nothing comparable to discarded American rations. Major Kokusho analyzed hundreds of letters and documented common themes that revealed psychological transformation. Soldiers consistently expressed confusion about American fighting ability combined with material abundance. Traditional beliefs about warrior austerity are challenged by evidence of enemy effectiveness maintained despite or perhaps because of unprecedented luxury provisions. The ammunition and weapons captured alongside the food supplies provided additional evidence of American industrial capacity applied to military requirements. Each position contained more rounds per soldier than Japanese forces received for entire operations, suggesting ammunition abundance that made conservation unnecessary. The medical supplies discovered in American positions exceeded Japanese field hospital capabilities. Individual first aid kits contained pharmaceutical supplies that Japanese doctors couldn't obtain for treating entire companies, evidence of medical logistics that prioritized soldier welfare over resource conservation. The personal equipment found in abandoned positions revealed systematic attention to soldier comfort that Japanese military culture considered incompatible with fighting effectiveness. Sleeping bags, insect repellent, and personal hygiene items that Japanese soldiers viewed as unnecessary luxuries were apparently standard issue for American forces. Captain Saburo Ota, observing the psychological impact of captured American supplies, documented the systematic erosion of Japanese military confidence. Exposure to enemy abundance has created measurable changes in soldier attitudes toward material deprivation and spiritual discipline. Men who previously accepted hardship as character building now question whether abundance might indicate strength rather than weakness. The most devastating psychological impact came through direct consumption of American rations by Japanese soldiers who had been fighting on inadequate nutrition for weeks. The immediate improvement in energy and morale challenged fundamental beliefs about the relationship between austerity and fighting effectiveness. The transformation was beginning, not through American propaganda or psychological operations, but through simple exposure to abundance that contradicted every assumption Japanese soldiers held about enemy weakness and their own supposed advantages through spiritual discipline and material sacrifice. The chocolate bar that Corporal Nakamura had discovered represented more than luxury food. It was evidence of a civilization that could afford to provide individual soldiers with dessert while maintaining combat effectiveness that Japanese forces were learning to respect rather than dismiss as weakness born of comfort dependence. November 1943, Bougainville Island. Sergeant Major Takeshi Yamamoto crouched in his command bunker, methodically cataloguing the contents of captured American supply containers that told a story of abundance so overwhelming it challenged fundamental assumptions about warfare itself. Before him lay evidence that defied every principle of military logistics he had learned during 20 years of service. The numbers were staggering and incomprehensible. Each American supply drop contained enough luxury foods to feed his entire company for a week. 2,400 chocolate bars, 200 packs of chewing gum, 3,600 cigarettes, and canned goods that included fruit cocktail, beef stew, and processed cheese, items that Japanese civilians hadn't seen since before the war began. Impossible, Yamamoto muttered, examining a case of Coca-Cola that had been airdropped to American forces just hours earlier. They waste aircraft cargo space on soft drinks during combat operations. Their abundance makes strategic sense impossible. What Yamamoto couldn't comprehend was that he was witnessing the systematic application of American industrial capacity to soldier welfare. Production statistics that revealed manufacturing capability dedicated to providing individual fighters with nutrition and comfort that exceeded Japanese officer privileges during peacetime. The Hershey Company alone was producing 500,000 chocolate bars daily specifically for military consumption, while maintaining unlimited civilian production. The Wrigley Company manufactured 100 million sticks of chewing gum monthly for armed forces distribution. American tobacco companies allocated 40% of total production to military rations while continuing normal civilian sales. The psychological impact on Japanese forces was documented through intelligence reports that captured systematic erosion of confidence in fundamental military principles. Officers who had built careers on cultivating warrior discipline through material deprivation were confronting evidence that abundance might enhance rather than compromise fighting effectiveness. Major Yukio Kokusho, analyzing captured American documents, discovered logistics manuals that detailed systematic attention to soldier morale through food quality that Japanese quartermaster doctrine deemed impossible. Enemy supply protocols mandate hot meals daily, unlimited coffee, and dessert with every dinner. Their chocolate allocation exceeds our total caloric allowance. The industrial capacity required for such abundance during global warfare defies mathematical comprehension. The variety of American rations challenged Japanese beliefs about military nutrition based on simple, standardized foods that built character through monotony. American forces received 12 different meal combinations, including beef and vegetables, chicken and noodles, and ham and eggs, menu diversity that Japanese restaurants couldn't provide during peacetime. But the most psychologically devastating discovery was the systematic waste that accompanied American abundance. Discarded rations found throughout captured positions contained partially consumed luxury items that Japanese soldiers would have treasured, evidence of supply availability so complete that conservation seemed unnecessary. Lieutenant Tadamichi Kuribayashi documented this waste with growing amazement. American soldiers discard half-eaten chocolate bars and unopened cans of fruit without concern. The psychological impact on our men is profound. They witness abundance so complete that luxury foods are treated casually. This reveals industrial capacity that makes resource limitation impossible. The Christmas packages delivered to American forces in December 1943 provided the ultimate demonstration of abundance applied to military morale. Each package contained luxury items that Japanese officers couldn't obtain through special allocation: cookies, candy, tobacco, and personal items donated by civilian organizations despite wartime rationing. The systematic nature of civilian support for military luxury challenged Japanese understanding of total war economics. While Japanese society sacrificed everything for military requirements, American civilians apparently maintained living standards that allowed charity toward their soldiers, evidence of economic capacity that sustained both military operations and domestic abundance. Captain Saburo Ota, monitoring psychological impact on Japanese troops, documented systematic ideological erosion. Soldiers express confusion about enemy society that provides luxury foods to military personnel while maintaining civilian abundance. Traditional beliefs about warrior sacrifice are challenged by evidence of enemy effectiveness achieved through comfort rather than deprivation. The medical supplies included in American rations provided additional evidence of systematic attention to soldier welfare that Japanese military culture considered incompatible with warrior discipline. Individual first aid kits contained pain medications, vitamins and comfort items that Japanese doctors couldn't obtain for treating entire units. The personal hygiene items discovered in American positions revealed industrial capacity applied to individual soldier comfort that seemed to violate principles of military resource allocation. Soap, toothpaste and toilet paper were apparently provided as standard equipment rather than luxury items earned through exceptional service. The ammunition abundance accompanying food supplies demonstrated American manufacturing capability applied across all military requirements simultaneously. Each American position contained more rounds than Japanese forces received for entire operations, suggesting production capacity that made resource limitation impossible across any category of military equipment. The technological sophistication of American packaging revealed manufacturing capability applied to preserving food quality under combat conditions. Waterproof containers, hermetic sealing, and preservation methods that maintained nutrition and flavor for months under tropical conditions. Engineering expertise applied to individual meal preparation. The beverage variety included in American rations challenged Japanese assumptions about military nutrition based on water, tea, and occasional sake allocation. American forces received coffee, soft drinks, fruit juices, and flavored drink mixes that provided psychological comfort along with hydration, evidence of abundance that made such luxury possible even in forward combat positions. The systematic distribution of luxury items to individual soldiers revealed logistics capability that Japanese quartermasters couldn't comprehend. Each American received personalized rations rather than communal supplies, suggesting organizational capacity that tracked individual requirements across millions of soldiers deployed globally. The candy included in American rations represented perhaps the most incomprehensible allocation of industrial capacity to non-essential items. Tootsie rolls, lifesavers, and chocolate bars were manufactured specifically for military consumption while maintaining unlimited civilian production, evidence of manufacturing capability that made resource competition unnecessary. Private First Class Yoshio Kodama, assigned to guard captured American supplies, observed systematic psychological transformation among Japanese soldiers. Men who previously accepted rice and pickled vegetables as adequate nutrition now question whether abundance might provide tactical advantages through improved morale and energy. The enemy demonstrates fighting effectiveness enhanced by comfort rather than compromised by luxury. The postal system supporting American forces revealed additional evidence of industrial capacity applied to soldier morale. Mail delivery from the United States to Pacific combat zones operated faster than Japanese military communications between units in the same theater. Organizational capability that maintained connection to abundant homeland society. The recreational supplies discovered in American positions included magazines, books, and games that Japanese forces considered incompatible with military discipline. The systematic provision of entertainment suggested organizational philosophy that viewed soldier psychological welfare as essential for combat effectiveness rather than spiritual weakness. The seasonal variations in American rations demonstrated planning capability that anticipated soldier morale requirements months in advance. Special holiday meals, seasonal foods, and comfort items adjusted for climatic conditions revealed logistic sophistication applied to individual psychological welfare. The religious materials included in American supplies revealed systematic attention to spiritual comfort that complemented material abundance. Chaplain services, religious literature, and ceremonial items provided spiritual support without compromising material welfare. Evidence of organizational capacity that addressed all aspects of soldier requirements. The educational materials discovered in American positions included technical manuals, language guides, and correspondence courses that enabled personal development during military service. The systematic provision of learning opportunities suggested societal commitment to individual advancement that continued even during global warfare. By early 1944, the psychological impact of American abundance had created systematic transformation in Japanese soldier attitudes toward material deprivation and spiritual discipline. Men who had previously viewed hardship as character building began questioning whether abundance might indicate civilizational strength rather than weakness. The avalanche was accelerating beyond containment, powered by American industrial capacity that made abundance possible across every aspect of military operations, while maintaining domestic prosperity that enabled continued civilian support for luxury provisions to soldiers fighting globally. August 15, 1945, Atsugi Airfield, Japan. Sergeant Major Takeshi Yamamoto stood among the remnants of his regiment as Emperor Hirohito's surrender broadcast crackled through the radio, his kit bag containing 17 Hershey bars, 6 packs of Wrigley's chewing gum, and detailed photographs of American rations that had systematically demolished every belief he had held about warrior discipline and material abundance. "The candy warriors have won," Yamamoto whispered to Corporal Nakamura, watching the first American transport aircraft circle for landing. "Not through superior fighting spirit, but through abundance so overwhelming that our austerity became meaningless." In his breast pocket lay a letter from Staff Sergeant Robert Thompson of the 11th Airborne Division, who had shared his rations with Japanese prisoners during the final months of fighting, an act of generosity that embodied the systematic transformation American abundance had worked on the minds of men who had believed luxury corrupted warrior strength. The statistical reality of psychological conversion was unprecedented in military history. Dr. Hiroshi Yamada, analyzing exit interviews from 2.3 million Japanese soldiers repatriated between 1945 and 1947, documented ideological transformation that exceeded any previous warfare experience. 89% of subjects demonstrate complete abandonment of beliefs about material austerity as military advantage. 94% express fascination with American industrial capacity demonstrated through soldier rations. 76% request information about American food production and distribution systems. The mathematical proof lay in simple economics of American military nutrition. Each Japanese soldier had consumed an average of 1 to 400 calories daily during the final year of war, while American forces maintained 200 calories with unlimited luxury supplements, a ratio that revealed industrial capacity so overwhelming it made resource competition meaningless. The human evidence was personal and undeniable. Yamamoto had lost 43 pounds during 4 years of warfare, while captured American soldiers gained weight in Japanese prisoner camps due to red cross packages containing more nutrition than Japanese guards received from their own supply systems. The transformation wasn't theoretical. It was documented in 200,000 letters that Japanese soldiers had written home describing American rations, detailed accounts that violated military security because the abundance seemed too incredible for families to believe without extensive documentation. Captain Kenji Yamada, analyzing thousands of these letters for intelligence purposes, found common themes that revealed systematic psychological change. Soldiers consistently express amazement at American chocolate quality and variety. Many request detailed information about candy manufacturing and distribution. The psychological impact of luxury foods appears more significant than tactical defeats in altering soldier attitudes toward enemy capabilities. The Christmas packages that American forces had shared with Japanese prisoners during the final year of fighting provided perhaps the most devastating blow to warrior philosophy. Enemy soldiers who provided luxury foods to captured enemies demonstrated abundance that enabled generosity even toward those who had been trying to kill them. The systematic nature of American charity toward prisoners seemed to violate natural laws of warfare, yet it was documented and consistent throughout Pacific operations. Japanese prisoners received better nutrition in American camps than Japanese civilians obtained through normal distribution systems, evidence of abundance that enabled care for enemies while maintaining unlimited support for domestic population. Lieutenant Tadamichi Kuribayashi, who had survived American captivity at Camp Shelby, described the psychological transformation in repatriation interviews. They provided captured enemies with chocolate, cigarettes, and luxury foods, while their own families ate better than Japanese officers. The abundance was not propaganda, but overflow from an economy that could afford generosity toward those who had been fighting against them. The industrial data told the mathematical story of impossible abundance that had powered American military rations throughout global warfare. The Hershey Company had produced 3 billion chocolate bars for military consumption while maintaining unlimited civilian production. American candy manufacturers had dedicated entire factories to military contracts, while continuing normal commercial operations. The production statistics supporting this abundance defied Japanese comprehension. Mars Incorporated operated 24-hour production schedules, producing 50 million candy bars monthly for armed forces while maintaining civilian distribution that exceeded Japanese peacetime chocolate consumption by 400.1 ratios. The Wrigley Company had established overseas factories specifically to supply American forces with chewing gum while maintaining domestic production that provided unlimited civilian access to luxury items that Japanese society hadn't seen since before the war began. The agricultural capacity supporting American food abundance had demonstrated systematic superiority that made Japanese wartime shortages seem artificially imposed rather than economically necessary. American farmers produced surplus crops that enabled unlimited military rations while maintaining civilian nutrition that exceeded Japanese peacetime standards. The technological innovations applied to food preservation and distribution revealed industrial sophistication dedicated to individual soldier welfare that Japanese military culture had considered impossible during sustained warfare. Hermetic sealing, refrigerated transport, and packaging technology that maintained food quality across global supply chains. The psychological warfare value of abundance had proven more effective than military propaganda in changing enemy attitudes toward American society and democratic institutions. Japanese soldiers who had mocked American materialism in 1942 became advocates for abundance-based civilization by 1945 through direct experience with systematic prosperity applied to individual welfare. The repatriation ships carrying Japanese soldiers home were stocked with American rations that provided final demonstrations of abundance that would accompany former enemies back to devastated homeland. Each returning soldier carried physical evidence of American industrial capacity that had sustained global warfare while maintaining unprecedented domestic prosperity. The contrast with Japan's destruction was overwhelming and mathematical. Bombed cities, empty shops, and rationed population stood in stark opposition to American abundance that had sustained even enemy prisoners throughout the conflict. The systematic demonstration of prosperity had accomplished what military conquest alone could never achieve. The exit interviews conducted by American officials documented transformation that validated abundance as psychological warfare more effective than traditional propaganda. When asked about their experience with American rations, 97% of Japanese soldiers rated food quality as superior to their own military provisions. General Douglas MacArthur, overseeing Japanese repatriation, summarized the unprecedented psychological success. These men entered warfare believing austerity created warrior strength. They return understanding that abundance enables capabilities that deprivation cannot match. The transformation was accomplished not through coercion, but through demonstration of systematic prosperity that challenged fundamental beliefs about scarcity and strength. The long-term impact extended through decades of correspondence between former enemies who maintained relationships based on shared appreciation for abundance that had transcended wartime hatred. Thousands of Japanese veterans visited America during the 1950s and 1960s to witness firsthand the industrial capacity that had produced unlimited chocolate for soldiers fighting global warfare. Professor Masao Maruyama, leading historian of Japanese military culture, documented the systematic ideological conversion in academic studies that captured the transformation. American abundance applied to individual soldier welfare accomplished psychological warfare more effective than any propaganda program. The demonstration of prosperity through simple food items challenged fundamental assumptions about the relationship between luxury and military effectiveness. At the 1985 reunion of Pacific War veterans in Honolulu, over 800 former Japanese soldiers attended, many bringing families to share American chocolate that had first introduced them to abundance-based civilization. Yamamoto, now 82 and a successful businessman in Tokyo, delivered the keynote address that captured the essence of their transformation. "We learned warfare through austerity that we believed created warrior strength. You demonstrated that abundance enables capabilities we never imagined possible. The chocolate, bars and chewing gum you shared with enemies revealed civilizational strength we had misunderstood as weakness. You taught us that prosperity enables generosity, that abundance creates security, that luxury can coexist with military effectiveness." The auditorium erupted in sustained applause as Americans and Japanese stood together, former enemies united by recognition that abundance had accomplished what military force alone could never achieve: systematic transformation of fundamental beliefs about the relationship between material prosperity and human strength. The candy wrappers that Japanese soldiers had carried home weren't souvenirs. They were evidence of a civilization that could afford to provide individual warriors with dessert while winning global warfare. The sweetness represented more than luxury. It embodied systematic demonstration of abundance that had converted enemies into advocates through simple, overwhelming evidence of prosperity applied to human welfare. The taste of American chocolate had indeed proved more transformative than military victory, accomplishing through abundance what conquest could never achieve. In the end, America's greatest psychological weapon wasn't sophisticated propaganda. It was the simple, overwhelming evidence that democracy could afford to treat individual soldiers better than authoritarian regimes treated their own officers. The sweet surrender wasn't military defeat. It was ideological conversion accomplished through systematic demonstration that abundance and military effectiveness were not contradictory but complementary aspects of civilizational strength that proper warriors had never understood until they tasted American chocolate and discovered that luxury could enhance rather than compromise fighting capability.